Sometimes a character just hits different, whether a result of off-kilter writing or a game actor fully committing to the role, and that's certainly true of these horror movie bit parts. If the script were a little different or another actor played the part, these characters could have easily felt more familiar and forgettable, but due to a convergence of inspired factors, they remain memorable years or even decades later. I'm Jess from What Culture, and here are minor horror movie characters everybody remembers. Dennis, Cabin Fever. Eli Roth's directorial debut Cabin Fever is a shamelessly repulsive good time, though you'd be hard-pressed to remember many, if any, of the central characters. But you probably do remember Dennis, the developmentally disabled young son of a local convenience store owner who appears for mere minutes in the movie, but makes one hell of an impact. When an infected Bert visits the store at the start of the third act, Dennis repeatedly shouts "pancakes" and starts leaping around the area, performing karate moves for some reason. He then bites Bert on the hand, because of course he does, and save for a fleeting glimpse of a now infected Dennis being treated at a hospital near the end of the movie, that's the last we see of him. If there's any one thing you're gonna remember about Cabin Fever, beyond its outrageous gore and gratuitous nudity that is, it's surely this pancake-loving boy and his penchant for gnawing on strangers' hands. Holly, the Omen. The Omen is jam-packed full of unforgettable moments, but there's one character who managed to enter the annals of horror movie history within just 3 minutes of screen time. Holly is Antichrist Damien's nanny while his family are living in England. Her scant screen time makes pains to illustrate that she's a sweet, attentive young woman, yet it all goes to hell, literally, at Damien's 5th birthday party, when she fixes her gaze upon one of Damien's hellhounds, which compels her to hang herself from the roof of the Thorne home. The hanging itself is spectacularly brutal, especially when juxtaposed against the fun of Damien's party. But what really makes it memorable is Holly shouting to Damien, "Look at me, Damien, it's all for you," with a euphoric smile on her face before taking the jump. Holly may have been a fairly disposable character in the grand scheme of the story, but her savage, intentionally jarring death and Palance's performance combined to ensure nobody who's ever seen The Omen could possibly forget her. Banana Girl, Friday the 13th, the final chapter. The Friday the 13th franchise has featured numerous iconic bit parts over the years, though perhaps the most beloved single-scene role is that of Banana Girl in the series' 4th film, The Final Chapter. Credited merely as Hitchhiker, the character appears for just a minute in the first act of the film, sat on the side of the road and hoping to flag down a charitable driver with her sign, "Canada and Love." The main characters drive past and heckle her, prompting her to flip her sign around to reveal "Fuck you" written on the back, while giving them 2 middle fingers up. Banana Girl then sits back down and earns her nickname, grabbing a banana from her backpack and taking a generous mouthful. At that moment, Jason Voorhees appears and stabs her through the neck with a knife, causing her to take a hard squeeze of the banana as she expires, mouth still full of fruit. The sheer strangeness of a poor woman being brutally killed by Jason while snacking on a banana is enough to make Banana Girl memorable, but she's also one of the more sympathetic of Jason's victims, given that she was only passing through the area to get to Canada. The Pale Man, Pan's Labyrinth. Considering how he's arguably the single most memorable aspect of Guillermo del Toro's fantasy masterpiece Pan's Labyrinth and was, as a result, featured prominently in all of the film's trailers, it's pretty shocking how little screen time the Pale Man actually has. The Pale Man is encountered by protagonist Ophelia mid-movie when she has to retrieve a dagger from his lair. Yet despite appearing on screen for just 5 minutes and neither moving nor making noise for much of that time, he still makes an incredibly deep impression. It helps that the child-eating monster is built up to both Ophelia and the audience prior to this sequence, but between the character's grotesque design, a loose-skinned, thin humanoid that wears its eyeballs in its hands, Doug Jones's skin-crawling physical performance, and the jaw-droppingly creepy lair, he's a villain nobody will ever forget. Despite the scene's relative brevity, this is effectively the centerpiece of the entire movie, culminating in a very pissed-off Pale Man brutally devouring 2 of Ophelia's fairy companions before she's able to make her hasty escape. Julian, Halloween 2018. Say what you will about David Gordon Green's Halloween movies, but he certainly delivered a number of memorable supporting characters, surely none more so than young Julian in the 2018 film. Julian is being babysat by Vicky, the best friend of protagonist Allison, when Michael Myers' latest rampage kicks off in Haddonfield. Julian has only a few minutes of screen time throughout the film, but he becomes Halloween's best source of comic relief through his irreverent banter with Vicky, his savvy awareness of horror movie tropes, and the fact that he gets the hell out of Dodge when Michael attacks Vicky. Julian sadly only reappears for a seconds-long cameo in Halloween Kills, which at least ensures he's kept well out of Michael Myers' way as his killing spree continues. Get Out. Jordan Peele's masterful satirical horror Get Out is full of memorable characters right from its embattled protagonist Chris through to its most minor supporting players. But the undeniable show stealer is surely the Armitage family's black housekeeper, Georgina, who, unbeknownst to Chris and the audience at this point, is actually under the control of the Armitage family matriarch, Marianne, her brain having been swapped out for Georgina's. Georgina has a fairly subdued yet subtly eerie presence throughout most of the movie. She's not in much of it, but Peele and actress Betty Gabriel made it abundantly clear that something is seriously off with her. This culminates in the legendary scene where Georgina speaks to Chris about accidentally unplugging his phone. And when Chris mentions his discomfort being around too many white people, she begins to cry while anxiously downplaying his concerns. Clearly, this is the residual consciousness of the real Georgina rising back up to the surface and interfering with the transplant, even if it isn't apparent to the audience at that moment. It's one of the best scenes in the movie and alone ensures that Georgina has a real discomforting air about her, no matter her gnarly death while attacking Chris at the end of the film. The Trucker, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's unlikely many will be remembering any of the characters from the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie 50 years from now, yet beyond the original's bevy of frontline characters, namely Hero Sally, villain Leatherface, and the whole Sawyer family, who can forget the truck driver who plays a pivotal role in its finale? As both Leatherface and the hitchhiker chase Sally at the end of the movie, she's saved by a truck driver who inadvertently runs down the hitchhiker, obliterating him. The trucker then pulls over and picks up Sally, but before he can drive off, Leatherface begins slicing up the side of the truck. And so the pair exit out the other door, where the trucker commits his most heroic act, throwing a wrench at Leatherface, which causes him to fall over and cut into his own leg with his chainsaw. This gives Sally time to hail down a passing truck and flee to safety, while the trucker appears to also cheese it himself. The trucker feels especially noteworthy as he isn't ever named, nor does he ever even say a single word, yet his hilariously clumsy body language and the means through which he manages to foil both the hitchhiker and Leatherface make him an undeniable horror movie legend. Santanico Pandemonium, From Dusk Till Dawn. From Dusk Till Dawn is crammed with memorably cartoonish characters, most of whom get a fair amount of screen time throughout the movie. None, however, are likely to be as readily remembered as Santanico Pandemonium, the vampiric stripper who makes a brief but eye-opening appearance in the middle of the film. Santanico performs a sexy dance for the assembled crowd at the Titty Twister strip club, culminating in a hilarious beat where the psychopathic bank robber, Richie Gecko, sucks on her alcohol-soaked foot. Tarantino gonna Tarantino, right? She then stands still while all violent hell breaks loose in the bar, but upon catching sight of Richie's now bloody hand, she can't resist but reveal her vampire queen form before attacking him. All in all, she has barely 5 minutes of screen time at the film's midpoint, but between Hayek's goddess-level sex appeal and the sheer surprise of her vampiric alter ego, the character makes every second count. Father Magruder, Braindead. And finally, we have spry New Zealander priest Father Magruder from Peter Jackson's splatter classic Braindead, who just might be the greatest character from any of Jackson's movies. And no, That's not a joke. Magruder is briefly introduced at roughly the movie's halfway point, and shortly thereafter rescues protagonist Lionel from a fleet of zombified ghouls by demonstrating his unexpected martial arts skills. He hilariously quips in his distinctive native twang, "I kick ass for the Lord," kung fu kicking the ghouls and tearing their limbs off. Sadly, Magruder's heroism is short-lived, as one of the ghouls' dismembered heads manages to take a bite out of his neck, turning him before he's impaled on a statue of Jesus Christ. Though Magruder does make a few brief appearances later on as a ghoul, the man as we knew him is gone, and then he's killed off for good when Lionel tears him apart with his improvised lawnmower weapon at the film's end. If you remember nothing else about Braindead, which is unlikely admittedly, you'll fondly recall that surprisingly limber priest beating the shit out of a pack of zombies in a graveyard.